Hello viewers, and welcome to a brand new episode of Trashtalk on Fabula Ultima, Natural Fantasy Edition, a series where I talk about the various classes you can mix together to create your desired heroic characters in your Fabula Ultima campaign. In today's episode, Floralist, Bloomblade, Gardener, Herbalist, spiritual energy flows within nature, and plants have a direct connection through it, growing into Magi seed that can thrive on spiritual energy and blossom into majestic triumph of magic, and Floralists are those that can identify and cultivate these seeds. In terms of mechanic, Floralist has the ability to plant Magi seed in their garden. These slowly grows as rounds come and went by, gathering and projecting more power as it goes. In a sense, this is kinda similar to Esper class. This can be used in supportive, defensive, or offensive purpose, just depending on how you build your class. As for the free benefits, Floralist lets you permanently increase your HP or MP by 5, either will be useful. Now, let's talk about the Floralist skill, starting with Battle Gardening. Battle Gardening, after you plant a seed through Chloramancy, a skill that's the core skill of Floralist essentially, and not using Graft to do so, which is another skill that you know nothing about yet, you may choose one option, perform a free attack with a weapon, or perform a spell action for free, but the total MP cost must be equal or lower than 20, treat the high roll as 0 when determining damage. This is just the very basic still punch someone even after doing your class specialty skill. If you want to beat up someone, 1 point in this is already enough. Second, Chloramancy, each time you acquire the skill, discover a new Magi seed from the list. During a conflict, if there's no Magi seed in your garden, you may use an action and spend 20 MP to plant a Magi seed you have discovered. So how does this work really? Well, after you plant down a seed, it has a clock section. This ticks up at the end of your turn. The number is used to determine what effect the seed will give, and once it reaches 4, the plant perishes, the cost of growing it so fast. The Magi seed list has a variety of options for you to pick. Most effects you already kinda expected, like granting resistance, dealing specific damage type, making enemies suffer status effects, not suffering from status effects, etc. Some are more crazy, like gaining inventory points, being too fast to be stopped, learning your enemy's IP address, or just healing people. If you feeling like it, you can also talk with your group on creating new seed variety on the spot. It's a thing you can do, just try not to abuse it too much. But what does this really all say? Well, you have a seed that grows in power, but you can only have one of it at a time, and it dies out in 4 turns, so if you keep your seed alive through a fight, your power level essentially plateau at round 4 and then you have to start over again if a fight lasts that long. That's all really, but that's something you need to keep in mind as a Floralist. Third, Graft, as long as there is a Magi seed in your garden and one or more section of the growth clock has been filled, you may spend an action to swap out the seed for another while still keeping the same filled clock. Want to be a little more tactically flexible with your garden? This 1-point skill will do that for you, preventing you from being a little predictable. Fourth, Tree of Life, when you remove a Magi seed from a garden, you may choose one creature. If they are in crisis, they can recover up to 30 HP, if you are a support character, this is a good skill to have. If you are not, this is still a good skill to have, just to make sure your team doesn't die. Also, there's an interesting wording here. This skill triggers when you remove your Magi seed, which can happen 2 ways, when your plant die at round 4, or when you switch out the seed with the Graft skill. Suddenly, you now have a very powerful combo, though you won't be doing damage in this case. And lastly, there's Verdant Sway, you gain the ability to perform ritual or ritualism, also can use ritualism to grow stuff. I found it very funny that there's a specific clause to prevent people from turning their character into poison ivy, though nobody said you can't mix Floralist and Necromancer together to play both sides of plant versus zombie at once. After putting 10 levels into Floralist, it is now considered as mastered and you can pick a heroic skill for it. Currently, there's 4 Floralist specific heroic skills, 3 in Natural Fantasy, and 1 in the 6th Fabula Ultima bonus supplement. First, in Natural Fantasy, there's Bramble Heart, which can also be unlocked by Darkblade and requires the Chloramancy skill. You are now resistant to light and poison damage, and after you lose HP, if you are in crisis and there's a seed in the garden, you may fill 1 section of the growth clock. Additionally, when you use Shadow Strike skill, you may have your attack deal poison damage, and this makes Shadow Strike do extra damage equal to twice the filled section of the clock. Bramble Heart, that name really reminds me of something terrible, but anyway, you are now growing something inside you. This grants you resistance to 2 damage types, and if you have Shadow Strike, It's now in a funny green color and do poison damage. Also, your plant now grow faster in response to your physical trauma, so, go get hurt a lot. Second, Greater Cleromancy, once per turn when a Magi seed leaves your garden, if the Magi seed has one or more at the end of your turn effect, you may spend 20 MP to reproduce the effect. Additionally, if you have acquired Verdant Sway skill, your ritual can now also influence and control soldier rank plant monster, but you still can't make them. What does this mean really? Basically, when a Magi seed leaves your garden, you can spend 20 MP to immediately activate any of its at the end of your turn effect. I presume this also works when you remove seed via graft, so you can essentially do this as a form of offensive attack that can't miss. The second part is more a narrative tool, but you can control plant people now, to a degree. And third, Green Thumb, when you fill one or more sections of your growth clock, you may choose one option, fill an additional section of your growth clock, or you fill one fewer section of your growth clock. If you do, you can't use this effect again until the clock is completely empty. Additional damage dealt by your Magi seed ignores resistance. Basically, with Green Thumb, you can make a seed grows even faster, or slow it down so you can still get its highest effect at turn 5. Resistance ignoring damage is also a pretty good deal. And onto the 6th Fabula Ultima bonus supplement, there's Symbiotic Roots, which can also be unlocked by Chimerist, Mutant, and Wayfarer, and must have the Faithful Companion. Construct Species, Skill. This is kinda weird in terms of theming. Yes, it's a heroic skill to have a companion that can beat up people for you, but it's specifically construct species so you won't have a tree companion to beat up people with, you have a robot instead. It's kinda just not fitting, but it works. And that's basically it on Floralist, the gardener that will use you as fertilizer if you don't back off right now. And with all current classes finished, the Trashtalk on Fabula Ultima series will now be on hiatus. What's next? Well, I will be moving to another project for sure, though I think some of you might have guessed it at this point. Anyway, that's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe and click that notification bell button. If you want to see the videos early as well as further support my channel, you can join in my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.